Hi everyone, it's Miss Rossi. Today we're going to be creating our own love monster drawing based on the book. What you will be needing today is a white piece of paper. We're going to need a pencil to draw with, and then I have some crayons and some watercolor paints to color in. If you do not have watercolor paints at home, you can use any other supply you have to add color. You can use crayons, markers, colored pencils, or whatever else you might have. Now we got to read the story Love Monster today, and we are going to draw our own love monster on our paper. So with my pencil, I'm going to start by drawing my monster on the bottom half of my paper. He's going to be looking up, and I'm going to fill the sky with a bunch of hearts to show all the love that we have for him. Now to draw our monster, I'm going to start towards the middle of my paper, and I'm going to draw a straight line that is going across horizontally from left to right. This is going to be the top of my monster's head, and now I can add some ears, which are going to be two big points, almost like triangles. I'm going to add one of those on either side. Now my monster's body is going to come down to the end of my paper. I want it to be a little hairy though. So I'm going to do almost like a little zigzag line, going down, making these little points until I reach the edge of my paper. I'm going to do that same thing on this side, and this is going to make our monster look almost like he's hairy and covered in all of this fur. And now I also want some hair along the top of my monster's head, so I'm going to do a similar little zigzag line right over that top straight line that I drew. And I can go in and erase those little bits of my straight line that I can still see. And now I have a nice furry monster body. Our love monster has two big circle eyes, so I can draw those right at the top of his head. And our monster is going to be looking up at the sky, so I am going to draw the pupils, or the black part of my monster's eye, up towards the top of the eyeball. So I'm just making a smaller circle up there to do that. I'm going to give my monster a nice big smile. You can decide what kind of mouth you want to give your monster. Mine's going to be happy because I am going to fill the sky with a bunch of hearts. So I think that is going to make my monster look pretty happy. Along my smile line, I am doing a bunch of little spiky triangles like a zigzag line to make some teeth. And I'm going to give my monster some eyebrows. And I'm going to push the eyebrows off to the sides with big curvy lines to show, again, that he's looking up towards the sky. Now that my monster is finished, I'm going to add all of those hearts I wanted to draw at the top of my paper. So right in the center, I'm going to start with a big curve coming down. And I'm going to make that same shape along the other side to make a nice big heart. I'm going to decorate my background with a bunch of other little hearts. If you want to add some other decorations to your picture besides hearts, you can do that. But I'm just going to repeat my heart shape in all different sizes all along my background, making sure that one in the center is the biggest. There we go. Now I am finished drawing my love monster with my pencil, so I can put my pencil down, and I'm going to add my crayons now so I can trace my picture. I'm going to grab a black crayon, and with my black crayon, I'm going to trace over all of my pencil lines that I can see. This is going to make my picture look a little darker, so it's going to be easier when I start to add color later on. So with my pencil, I'm just carefully going to trace over all of the lines that I already drew. And if it's not perfect, that is okay. Our love monster does not have to be perfect. As I'm tracing, I am going to color in my love monster's pupil, that black part of his eye, black, by just filling in that circle carefully with my crayon. Now that I finished tracing everything with my black crayon, I do see some spots where my pencil lines are still showing, so I'm just going to quickly use my eraser and erase any pencil lines I can still see. I'm going to be careful going around my crayon with my eraser because I don't want to smudge my crayon too much. So I'm just erasing any of those larger areas where I can see my pencil marks pretty clearly. But any of the little small sections, you don't have to worry because our watercolor will cover over it. That looks better. Now I'm going to pick some different colored crayons to color in some of my smaller hearts in my background. Now my paintbrush is a little too big to fill in some of these extra tiny hearts that I drew, so I'm just going to use my crayon to fill them in instead, so I know my picture won't get too messy and everything won't start to blend together. You can color in your picture however you would like. You do not need to use the same colors as me. You can decide what will look best in your picture. As I'm coloring with my crayons, though, I am making sure I am pressing firmly so my crayon color is nice and dark, and I am filling in that whole space. I don't want to leave too much white space when I'm coloring with my crayons, because then my watercolor paint is going to cover over it and get in that space, and I don't want that to happen today. When you put enough crayon in one spot on your picture, it will start to resist the watercolor or prevent the watercolor from covering over it and not letting the watercolor in that space. But in order for that to happen, you need some nice bright color on your paper. So you want to fully color in that space. Alright, and that is all my hearts colored in, so I'm going to put my crayons away because the rest of my picture I'm going to do with my watercolor paints. So I have all of my smaller details colored in, and I have all of my different parts of my picture traced with my crayons. Now I'm going to start by coloring in my monster with my watercolor paints. Now our love monster is red in our story. I have this kind of like dark pinkish red that I'm going to use to fill him in, but you can choose whatever color you would like if you would like to make your love monster a different color. When we're using our watercolors, we want to make sure that we wet our paintbrush, wipe it off on the edge of our cup so it doesn't drip all over the table, and swirl carefully into our watercolor that we're choosing. When we're using our paintbrush, we want to be very gentle so we don't hurt the brush hairs on the end of our brush. We want to keep those nice and pointy. So I am going very gently along my paper and not pressing my brush too hard on my table. Now I'm going to carefully go around my monster's eyes. I can go right over the top of the eyebrows, but I want to keep those eyeballs nice and white. I'm carefully going into all of those little zigzag lines that I drew with my crayon to show his hair. Once my brush runs out of paint, I can always wet it again and dip back into my watercolor paints. The more water you add to your watercolor paint, the lighter the color is going to be. So if you have a really dark color and you want it to be a little bit lighter, you can always add a little bit more water to it, and that should help. But otherwise, I'm making sure to fill in all of the white space on my monster's body nice and carefully. And now I'm also going to go around my monster's teeth. I don't want to get pink inside his teeth. I want to leave those nice and white, just like the eyeballs. There we go, he's looking great. I'm going to clean off my paintbrush because I have a nice big heart up here that I still want to color with my watercolor paints. I'm going to clean off my brush, and I think I'm going to make my heart purple. So now that my brush is clean, I can dip into my purple paint, and I'm just carefully going to fill in my big heart that I drew at the center. And now that that is done, I'm going to clean off my brush once again, and the last thing left is my background. So I am just going to choose whatever color I would like to fill in the background on my paper. I think I'm going to do yellow. So now that my brush is clean, I can swirl around in my yellow paint, and I am just very carefully going to fill in the background on my paper. Now, since I colored in all of these little hearts with my crayon, I can paint right over the top of them and they will still show up. Our crayon is going to, again, resist our watercolor paint, so it will not let our watercolor paint cover over it, so I can paint right over the top of all of those little tiny hearts. Now I do want to be careful around my large heart and around my monster. I'm going to make sure I paint around those instead of going over the top, because the watercolor that I used to fill in those areas could spread and mix with the yellow that I'm using for the background. And that is my love monster all finished. Once you're done with your picture, you can let it dry and then take a photo or video of it to upload on Canvas. I can't wait to see the adorable love monsters you guys have created. I hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day. Try your best, have fun, and get creative, and I'll see you soon. Bye!